Welcome to One on One. I'm Greg Bassett, your host from the Salisbury Independent newspaper. It's another big day here at PAC 14. The boss is in the house. County Executive Bob Culver, welcome.
Good morning. How are you doing?
You look good today.
Well, thank you.
You're supposed to be worn down by all this stress of running the county.
Not at all. It's every day is great. So.
It's budget time. Teachers, everyone's asking for money, and you're like my old grandfather down on the farm going, we don't have the money to give you. Do you want to talk about that?
I'll be glad to talk about it. What part of it you want to know?
Well, do we have the money to give them?
Not entirely, no. I took this year's budget and took everybody's request in. We did fund Board of Education fully based on MOE. In addition to that, we were able to set aside $750,000. Now, $750,000 is about a penny and a half on your taxes, but we had that much left over that we didn't earmark for someplace else, and we were able to set that aside for non-reoccurring costs for the Board of Education.
And that's the first time you've ever done that.
It is. I've kind of let the decision on part of this money to be decided by the council members. There's 7 members there. We will have sessions coming in, and I'd like to, I've always said my goal is to make the schools hard, make them safe, make the parents feel that they're safe, and go from that point. The council could overrule me and decide they want to put it towards computers. They could put it towards anything that's non-reoccurring.
So, but for you, there's a safety issue. The state's got some stuff coming down the pipe which will help, but you see a local problem here with especially Pittsfield and Willards. There's a lot of noise out there about safety, about making these schools harder so someone can't get in as easily.
Well, we want to make them as safe as we possibly can. I don't think there's ever can be a school or any building that's impossible to penetrate. But at the same time, if we do everything that we can do, then we're ahead of the game. But, I feel like it wasn't necessarily a knee-jerk reaction like some people have said down in Pittsfield. They've asked for this for a while. And SROs, school resource officers, do cost money.
Right.
So they're a fully fledged deputy. They carry a weapon, and they are a deputy. So.
There is a movement right now that we're detecting. We're seeing it everywhere with the chamber, certainly. United Way's just come out. There's Delmarva Education Foundation, where they want more concentrated spending on education. They haven't really said what for yet, whether instruction. Seems like physically, for the capital spending, you guys are doing pretty good. You're building a lot of stuff. We've got some quality stuff.
Well, if you look at it, we have built Bennett High about 5 years ago. Bennett Junior was about 3 years ago. We'll finish in this year West Salisbury School, and we put Beaver Run on the planning department.
Do you support the Beaver Run?
I do. After not so much as tearing a school down and rebuilding it, but the hallways, the breezeways for the safety part of it, and also we had some flooding problems over there. That part I definitely do support. I don't want any school that's not safe for our children to go to, and I want the parents to feel safe. We have run the city water and sewer to the building, so we're going to be able to do that, but we'd have to go ahead through now and redo all the plumbing in order to use the city water. So it's kind of a catch-22. So maybe it's time to go ahead and do it. Economy has picked up a little bit. We're not too far behind the ball right now, but we're working very strong on that. So right now, I think that's the last one that we see, in addition to some systemic renovations like Del Mar and schools like that need some work.
Do you feel pressured on education, or do you feel like you're doing your best?
Well, I know I'm doing my best. I know I'm doing the county's best that we've got. We've got a lot of assets that need to be protected and taken care of. And yes, through my 3.5 years of my term, we spent about $5 million on fixing up the buildings that we've got. And that sounds like a lot, but we've got a lot of real estate out there. So, we have chillers. A chiller is just basically the air conditioner. And these big chillers up on top of the buildings will cost $300,000 to $400,000. And they've gone 20 years and 25 years. We've gotten more life out of them than we thought we were going to be able to anyhow. It just happened to come at a bad time when your car never breaks down till you don't have any money to pay for it. And that's when it comes. And that's what's happened to a lot of our real estate. So we're working very hard on bringing those back up. The item of the sheriff's office, $12 million, and not cheap by any means. But the fact of it is we're asking the people that protect us to be in a building that would blow down at 70 miles an hour, and it's leaking. And I believe there was an article in the Daily Times this past week regarding that. So there's a lot of corrections that need to be done. We just finished a $20 million radio system so that we can have radios. Our police and our fire will have contacts, our emergency radio system. So people don't know about that when they ride by and see these towers.
Right.
But that's $20 million, and that's been ongoing ever since I was on council. So I know that for the last 8 years that's been in the works.
One of the things you hear all the time, there's money in reserve, but that money's there for a purpose. You want to talk about that?
The money is in reserve, and we do have money. We have roughly $40 million that's in good shape. But if we didn't have that, we wouldn't be able to get a loan when we go to bond market. So it's like getting a mortgage. You've got to have a certain amount of money in your savings account, or 20% down if something were to come up. And you relate that to a mortgage on your house or your car. And that's why that money is there. It is to protect us. If we were to go with no revenue and for some ungodly reason, whatever stopped everything, we would have enough to keep the government going for the next 4 to 5 months. It runs about $10,000 a month as our cost to keep the general services in the government going.
And then the school board budget was about $6 or $7 million. There's a gap there. But for the county to fund it, you would have to raise taxes by a lot.
Well, they had an ask originally of $1.3 million, and when we were sitting down, Wayne and I and Dawn sat down and Michelle working on their budget, they had a 1.3 ask, and that was to help get pre-K started. And actually, we're the ones that went to them to ask about pre-K.
And you support the universal pre-K. You've been very open-minded to that.
I do. I mean, I support education very much, but I've got to be realistic too. I just can't give away the farm for one division. But when it came back, there was a $7.9 million ask. I mean, that's quite a bit difference. In order to do a $7.9 million ask, if I were to fund that, and it's very admirable, I think Dr. Hanlon's done a wonderful job, and she's great, but the point is that I don't have 14 cents to raise. I would have to raise your taxes by 14 cents per 100. If you remember, the council cut the budget last year by 1.13 cents. That came out to about $670,000. So you take the 1 cent is worth about $590,000 now in our tax base. If you take that, that's how many cents I would have to need to raise your taxes in order to pay because it's not non-reoccurring, it is reoccurring costs with teacher salaries, students, buses, everything else. It's mostly all reoccurring. Now there was an ask for $3.2 million for portables.
Right.
For that. But we didn't have that in cash, so we looked at bonding that. So I called the bond market. Wayne called the bond market. We can't bond those because they don't have a life of 15 years.
Right.
And so that creates a problem. You can't finance a car for 20 years, and you can't finance a building for longer than what its life expectancy is.
So you're out there, you're around people all the time, you're out in the county, you're all over the county. What are you hearing from people about education? Are they skeptical? Do they want the funding? What are you hearing?
Well, a lot of them want our kids to be educated just as well as anybody else in the state. That's true. But the problem is we're the 23rd poorest county in the state of Maryland. But when you add the funding of what we've spent per student as well as what we've bought in new schools, and you've got to add that to it, we're 13th. So we're giving the 13th most money in the state, but yet we're the 23rd poorest county. So nobody wants their children not to be educated, not to be fed or anything. We all agree to that. But the point is we've got so much we've got to deal with. So what do you cut to make one thing work? Feeding the children are probably one of the first priorities we're going to do, because a child can't learn if he's hungry. And I'll be the first to agree with that 100%. So whatever that takes to make that child stomach full, then let's start with that. And then we work from there.
People say to me, oh, county executive's he's not education friendly. And I go, well, look at the thing he did with Warwick. I mean, that was miraculous how ahead he was of everyone else, especially the council, in terms of the tuition plan for Warwick, the scholarship plan. You want to talk about that?
Well, it's in its third year. We still have some money left over, and I'm tickled to death for that. Now that the governor has passed basically Dr. Hoy's plan and my plan is statewide now. So, I'm very honored by that they didn't limit the income like our council did, but at the same time, the
success of our plan, and also in other counties, but it sort of
Garrett
snowballed,
County
and now it's going to be a
some of theirs,
thing.
and we've done it. So it's been a wonderful addition to Warwick. Anything we can do to help children get to school and get an education. 12th grade is no longer the education that you need, to get through and get a good job. You've got to get a couple years of school, and there's good jobs after 2 years of college. Dr. Hoy has some classes out there that are accredited classes that offer wonderful, opportunities for you. So, anything we can do to help that, that's, and it's not a short-term gain. Just like Donna Hanlon's plan of Imagine, that's not a short-term gain. That's a long-term project, and that's what we've got to work on. But we have to plan on that. So, where do we go? Do we make one school for all pre-K, or do we add on to each school that we've got in an elementary school to make pre-K? These are things that need to be sat down and talked about and worked out for a long-range plan.
Right.
Right now, I don't know. Nobody's asked me about it.
It's going to happen fast.
Yes. I mean, maybe too fast. In reality, you just, it goes so much easier so everybody knows everything that's going on. I mean, there's no questions. And, Bob, why did you do that? Well, we know why Bob did it. Either he's an idiot and he took that choice, or, it was just ahead of his time. So, you got to go with those.
Speaking of being honest with the people, and that's probably an overstatement, we have a charter review. The county's run by a charter. Mm-hmm. So there's a big set of rules, like a constitution, about how to run the county. Yeah. There's a charter review commission that meets every 10 years, I guess.
It's in the charter that they have a charter review commission every 10 years, right?
And they sit down and they dissect the charter, and they figure out what they want to add to it and take out of it. The county executive rule was added years ago. So that is part of the charter review committee. It was done. Last time, a year ago, 2 years ago, the county council on its own made charter changes, took them to the voters. Voters approved all of them by a huge margin. I don't know if there was a substantial education campaign. I tried to explain what was in them, but I don't know that people really understood. And now the same thing's going on again for this election. Where are you with the council in changing the charter?
Well, I spoke the other night at council meeting about a month ago, 3 weeks ago, that I asked them, please do not go forward with this. Basically because they've done the same thing they did last time. They've waited till the last minute to bring it out. And my thought is that it needs to be, you need to talk about charter change. Charter changes are big things that affect the county. Part of our charter was written back in '64. Part of it was done in 2004, and the executive form of government started in 2006. This council is determined to go ahead and change things that the executive has the power to do now, that they want to go ahead and either water it down or take it away from the executive.
And what you see, they're either weakening your power or increasing their own.
They are. There's a good example here. Now, they want to now have the approval of the deputy directors. Now, as it stands now, the county executive appoints all department heads. They have got to be confirmed by the council, much like the state does. They want to go ahead now and do the deputy directors. Well, the deputy directors are merited. They will have a lawsuit on their hands so big because you can't take and approve or disapprove by a county council a merited employee.
Right.
So, I mean, things that they have not thought of. I mean, these are the things we need to sit down. They've never asked me. They've never said, look, you want to sit down and discuss them with me? They've got 2 work sessions planned. One of them is after the public hearing for the budget, which nobody's going to be in tune to at all.
They're going to be exhausted after that exercise.
After that, it'll be a 2-hour meeting, 3-hour meeting anyhow. And then they've got one on the 15th of May. And then they go to a public hearing, maybe optional, and then they want to adopt them in June. That's 30 days. 30 days is not enough time to get out in the public through your paper, through the Daily Times, through PAC 14, any organization, the changes that will affect the future of Wicomico County. It needs to be talked about. It needs to have this 15 members has always been what we use.
Right.
Why are we letting 7 people, in case it was an emergency? I would agree with that. 5-2 vote. And the executive voted in on it also. But why are we changing that to where it's just 7 men? 10 charter changes last time. 10 charter changes proposed now. They may not put all of them through, or they may come up with 2 more. Who knows?
Right. That's a very tough ballot.
And most people think that those charter amendments are needed, so they'll vote yes, 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 yes. I talked to many people just voted yes for all of them. I don't know, maybe Paul can write them so you've got to vote no, 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 and see how they go on that time. But the point is that these are big changes, and that is a lot to absorb. It's already going to be several pages long, the ballot is. So,
now, you had one that you wanted on there. Did that make their cut?
Well, they're going to discuss it, and that's going to be about term limits. And they may just end up giving me term limits. I'm not sure, but my thought was 2 terms for an executive, just like the governor, and 3 terms for the council people. And it was not aimed at anybody. I'm not trying to do that, but I just think that
And of
seems
course,
to be,
Joe Holloway says you wrote it just to get him. He's a council member from
he is,
Parsonsburg.
and I think Joe does a great job. But I'm sorry he felt that way. But I just think in the future, right now it wouldn't affect him because it would have to take place after this election. So it would be next year. It wouldn't affect me.
Right.
Actually, I can go ahead and run another term. That's going to be disappointing to Carl Anderton, but so be it.
He's our delegate who would like to be county executive.
Right. But the point of it is this won't affect me. I can do 2 more terms after that, even if they say it's 2 terms. So, but I just feel like that's a good way to do it. There are several counties that have that. And I just feel that we need to have an answering to the people. We've got some great candidates running this time. I mean, I think we've got several new candidates that don't have the political background at all, and I think that's wonderful. So they'll bring a different view to the council.
Yeah, your race is interesting, and we'll have you back for election time. But 3 people in that race.
3 people: Republican, myself, Democrat, Mr. Hamilton, and then Mr. Heath, which is an independent.
Right. So you're out there. What are you hearing from people about the election?
Well, I mean, it's too early, in one sense. Nobody knows what we haven't had the first article in Salisbury Independent about where we stand, of course, and you'll sway the whole county with your opinion.
Of course, yeah. But we have to get through the primary first.
But people that I hear so far are pleased with what we've done. I say my administration has done. We've done what we said. You may not agree with everything we've done, and I can understand that, and I appreciate that. But we have done what we said we were going to do when I ran on the office. I think to go along to get along is the wrong ideal. I wouldn't have made anybody mad had I just gone around cutting ribbons and kissing babies. But that's not me. I wanted to make changes, and we've made changes. We've made some good changes, and I think not all of them will be recognized until a couple of years down the road. Pirates Wharf Park is taking off and starting to do very well this year. We've gotten our money lined up for that. People will start seeing changes on that this summer.
Talk about there exactly what you want to do. Want to put some cabins in and have it be a tourism spot?
Well, that wouldn't be the place for.
Oh, not Pirates Wharf. That's down in Tiaskin.
Tiaskin, right? Yeah. That's at Jackson Harbor there. But Pirates Wharf would have walking paths. Would be to walk around the water down by that. Possibly have a small canoe or a kayak type boat ramp there to unload at. And just to enjoy the farm and go back to a little bit of history there, to walk around there and enjoy that. But right now, and then I would like to have at some point in time down the road, my thought would be is to have like a conference center down there where you could overlook on the water and see that, and you could have a wedding down there if you wanted to, or have Pac 14 could decide to have their picnic down there, and something like that. So I mean, the conference center would have a warming kitchen, much like the one that was built on the Boy Scout, what we call a Boy Scout, but Rotary Club.
Right.
They've got a beautiful place there.
Right. That is nice there.
It's good size.
But in Tiaskin, there at the harbor, you'd like to put some cabins.
I would. They do it at Deep Creek Lake. Now people say, well, this isn't Deep Creek Lake. No, in some ways it's better because we have great fishing out there. And how many times have you seen somebody come through town with a Pennsylvania tag and on their boat trail or something like that, and they're going to Ocean City, or they're just trying to find a ramp, and they would love to stay over for 3 days and fish for a weekend. We have slips right there. They could leave the boat in the water all 3 days and go from there, go to the Sound, go to the Bay, go to Nanticoke River, Wicomico River, Minokan River. So it's an economic development driver for the entire community. And we've heard very positive, and we've heard some very negative thoughts on it, to the fact of, someone said that the water is irony down there. We have conditioners all the time, and, you can find any number of reasons not to do something. So I would like to just I want to make it a destination. There's no need people have to ride through here to go to Worcester County. And it's beautiful in Worcester County, but so is Wicomico. We've got a lot to offer here. So
one thing you got done that people said could never get done, alcohol at the Civic Center. What's been the blowback on that? Has it been a positive thing? Are people mad at you for it?
I have not heard either complaint since we've done it.
Right.
I heard a lot beforehand, that was not what was supposed to be done, but when you proved to them, and Paul Wilbur did the title search on the property and proved that codicil had been taken off, it was like it all died down. And we have not had a problem. There's not been either rowdy fight or anything that people said was going to happen. Now we have not made the money that we had hoped to make or that was set forth that some people had estimated. But then again, we've never put in a draft bar. We've never put in a craft corner for the craft beers.
And you've limited the events that you'll have it at.
And we have limited the events. But I can tell you that the first, again, I think I've made this statement before, the first weekend we had concerts there, we did $30,000.
Right.
Now that's, it's nothing to sneeze at. That helps go a long way. People who have not seen the Civic Center since we've done the renovation with the carpet and the walls and the curtains need to get out there.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. It really is. It's become an arena now that's no longer, the Wicomico Civic Center. It's much bigger.
Is it a profit center in the budget, or does it still cost money?
It still costs money at this point in time, but it's taking less and less.
Right.
Well, of course, we're fixing things up. We're spending money on that. We're going to get ready to do the roofs, where you notice when you walk into the box office, it's peeling so bad now. Why it's peeling, I can't tell you. But so, do we paint it? Do we replace the metal? And it's almost as cheap to replace the metal as it is to paint it. So, and then we could change that color going around the Manchard style part, and it would put a whole different look on there. So. There's a lot of debates on that now, but it's moving forward, and that's what I like about it.
Do you like keeping it in the county, or would you ever privatize it? There's some things you could privatize, like perhaps the landfill or the civic center.
Well, right now, the only thing I think I could privatize, and that would be good, would be the dispensaries and the ferries. Those I could see being privatized to a certain extent. In other words, it wouldn't cost as much to be subsidized as ferries. But as far as the civic center, I think that's a thing that we provide for all county citizens, and I wouldn't want people coming in there and raising the price too much so you couldn't go in and enjoy a show or whatever. So I've never really thought about privatizing that. It's hard to get shows in because it is a small arena, and they have usually when you do Philadelphia show, they have a 150-mile or something like that radius. They cannot perform somewhere else. So
yeah, people don't understand all those restrictions.
There's a lot of restrictions, and we've just hired a new Civic Center manager.
Right.
Chuck Russo is now deputy director under Steve, and we have Kevin Wright, who was our fire marshal, who had some experience in this, has decided to throw his hat in the ring, and he was chosen to be the new director of the Civic Center. So we're excited. So let's see which way it goes.
You mentioned the ferries. When I do the Today in History column, one of the things I stumble on all the time was the county extending the contract to the ferry operator. And they would pay somewhere, depending on the year, between like $2,000 a year to $10,000 a year for some guy to operate and maintain the ferry. And I've always wondered, why did we ever change that?
Before my time, maybe during your time, but before mine. But anyhow,
that might be the way to do it. And because people talk about the ferries all the time. When I say to people like, all right, where would you cut county spending? They go, the ferry? Do we need the ferry? Well, the ferry's not a lot of money.
The ferry's not a lot of money. It costs a couple $100,000 a year to run the ferries, with labor, insurance, that type of thing. But what you could do is we have many watermen around here. And captain is only allowed to go so many days a week crabbing. So for him, in order to make him a added type of living, he could always run the ferry. Start a consortium where they run the ferry and they split it amongst themselves, 5 captains or 6 captains, and they can do that. So there's ideas that we could put into effect. It may have to go to that you charge $1 a car, you charge $1, to get across, because anybody that lives in Whitehaven and has to go over to Somerset County side would gladly pay $1 and not have to drive 40 miles around. And that's exactly what it is, 38 miles from ferry point to ferry point to come all around. It's a great biking path, and many of the people in Whitehaven that do bike ride that and go ferry to ferry, it's called, and they enjoy that.
Right. You just had a big success here recently, too. You rededicated the Henry Parker Park with the expansion.
Yeah, that's nice.
Baseball fields, talk about that.
Well,
that was another area that people didn't imagine that you would want to grow.
Well, I do. I mean, a lot of people assume a lot of things that they really don't know, but Henry Parker athletic complex there is something that has been quite an asset to Wicomico County. It's hard to tell how much money that has brought in, hundreds of millions of dollars to tourism over the last 10 to 12 years. But we were able to put in 3 new fields this year. I backed that when I first came in. That's the frustrating part. It takes 3 years to get some of these things done. But we've put them to the size of Little League. Under Steve Miller has decided to go Little League. We now have a Little League tournament coming in the week before the USSSA tournament coming in. We have a Little League tournament, and they have said that they will expand that if it does well. So, we're behind that as much as we are USSSA. And we've moved our rectangular fields, and we've agreed to go with Falcon down in Fruitland to use any rectangular fields. So we may be getting into that later on, but right now, Mr. Ed Urban has been very helpful to us, and we're going to, rent his fields for any of our tournaments and share that cost.
What an asset to the community Ed Urban is.
Oh, he has been great. He really has, and he's done so much for the youth in Wicomico County through the Falcon League, and his whole family, not just Ed, but his whole family.
His daughter Michelle was just named physician of the quarter there. I saw in the paper.
But they all help on weekends help Dad down there. So
yeah,
it's just wonderful. So, we've got a lot of good things going on in the county, and people that don't think so just don't get out to do it. And you need to get out and see what we've got. Our employment is the most it's ever been in Wicomico County. So are they all the jobs we want? No, but we've got to prove ourselves through education and in workforce that that's what we can handle. And we'll get no more than we can handle, and that's what we need to do.
For the next 60 days, headlines in my favor that you're in, probably going to be fighting with the council about the budget. Last year they did they did some weirdness at the end where they met and cut, and you were kind of out of the loop on it. What are you anticipating this time?
Hopefully it won't be that way. I want very much to work with the council. Now, we may not agree, but that's why there's 7 of them.
Now they can go and they can cut your budget, but they can't add to it.
They can cut my budget, but they can't add, with the exception of education. The education part they can add, but if they have to add anything over $750,000, other than more than they've cut, then we'll have to go tax raise, and that's going to be up to them. So,
and we can do that without it affecting the revenue cap because it's for education?
For education.
Okay.
It does not affect the revenue cap. So, and that's something that's been talked about, and that's another story we need to talk about someday. But
right.
But anyhow, it's going to be, it's up to the council now, and hopefully the last time we didn't get included on a lot, but hopefully this year that they will include us, and I'm hoping John and Mark and Larry will work with us, Joe and all of them.
How have you let them know that, hey?
Every other Tuesday, our office is open. We set an hour and a half aside, but nobody has shown up. But we're just hoping this year that when it comes budget sessions, that they'll let us know and invite us in. So the one that got so contentious was the one that they didn't invite us into last year, or we didn't know about, and they decided to have in the back room, sort of. And you did find out about it, but that was just. That was a political thing, just to try to beat Bob on a tax cut, because everybody thought they had second-guessed me, and I was going to go for a tax cut.
Right. The conventional wisdom was that you would cut taxes this year in an election year.
Mm-hmm. I didn't do it. So, I think people need to know that what we've got is what it is, and it'll be that way for a while. We will have to go at some point in time with a tax raise. I mean, there's no doubt about it. But if we raise it 2 cents and we can keep it that way for 4 years, then that's fine. People get used to it. What we don't like is going up 3 cents this year, go up 4 cents next year. So, and that's something you'll have to live with. Any council people that do that will have to live with, whether it be county or city.
Is there anything you're looking forward to in the next year?
I really do enjoy the job. I enjoy getting up and coming in the morning and looking forward to it. I enjoy a second term with Governor Hogan, and hopefully the fact that what we could do, together on that. I mean, he's become quite an ally for Eastern Shore, and that's been wonderful. So I've been very proud of having him as my governor, and I met with Lieutenant Governor Rutherford last night, and it was good. I mean, they care a lot about the Eastern Shore. So hoping that they both pull their second term, I pull my second term, and we can increase Wicomico County even further. I hope to do more regional things. There's talk of it, and we'll be able to let you know soon on that, but I'd like to bring in Worcester County and Somerset County and become more regional with some projects. And as a region, we're stronger than we are as either individual county. So
he's Bob Culver. He's the boss of our county executive. Thrilled to have you here today, Bob.
Thank you. I appreciate it. My pleasure always.
Thank you. I'm Greg Bassett from the Salisbury Independent Newspaper. Another edition of 101 right here on PAC 14.
First Shore Federal is proud to support PAC 14 and one-on-one. We'd encourage every business to support PAC 14 and pick a program and support it, and let's make a difference.